Hello, and welcome to the first season of DigiFox Studios' new original podcast series, The Blood-Drawn Chronicles. Brought to you in part by Cool Comics and Games, Lee County's largest comics and gaming store, and the generous contributions of audiences like you. Thank you. The Blood-Drawn Chronicles Season 1, The Manuscripts of a Vampire, stars Nelson Ventura as Myrick, son of Myer, Alyssa Kalugden as Carina Gallo, Paul Roberts as Lord Dragon, and Sterling Torville as Lord Tyrus Godfrey. To view the full cast, crew credits, and more, please visit www.digifoxstudios.com/tbdc. On behalf of everyone here at DigiFox Studios, we want to thank you for listening, and now our story begins. If you're reading this, I bestow a word of caution to those faint of heart. This book contains a record of events that occurred and acts which I've committed during my time in the world of man. I am Myrick, son of Myer, and these are the manuscripts of a vampire. May 27th, 1690. Carina wastes no time. From the moment she awakes, she invites me to sit at the table. Theophilus' book is well placed in the center. Since the events that occurred yesterday, I've come to learn much of the woman I shall be temporarily dwelling with. She comes from a family of prestigious vampire hunters. At the mere age of 11, she slayed her first vampire, a Lord Alejandro Cristofo. She recalled the event to be ever so satisfying. Though she refrains from revealing much of herself to me, she has openly admitted to the fact that this was her first mission on her own. She claims that to the gallows, this is a rite of passage. To achieve success on a mission without the aid of the family is to declare oneself amongst the ranks of a senior member of her clan. To prove herself further, she took it upon herself to slay Dragon the Tormentor as her first solo mission. Unfortunately, her pride carries the better of her. She will not admit the Horde King proved to be more than she alone could handle, nor will she accept the fact that she pursued him ill-prepared. She approached him head-on, without first collecting knowledge of what he's capable of, or who he may accompany himself with. This leads me to deduce that on all her previous missions, Carina served as a frontliner, and not a strategist. How lamentable for her that she should come from the most prestigious family of hunters, yet she lacks strategic skill. Perhaps this is the doing of her father, so as to always keep his daughter protected by his side, and perhaps Carina knows this. It would be conceivable, then, that she chose the Horde King to make the proper statement to her family. As I continue to ponder, my train of thought is suddenly broken by Carina herself, who approaches. She walks to me holding 2 warm bowls and places one of them directly in front of me.
I hope you enjoy the taste of beans. It's nothing compared to a well-cooked steak. but it's all I have packed with me. Eat fast, Mr. Myerson, so that we may begin.
As much as I appreciate the gesture, I do not eat human food.
Well, I'm afraid to inform you that I'm fresh out of blood, so beans will have to do.
I'm no vampire, Miss Gallo. I don't require blood as a means of sustenance.
Is that so? Well then, Mr. Myerson, you must enlighten me on how a vampire finds means of nourishment.
Not through blood, and certainly not through beans.
Pity. You should have told me that before I cooked them. Tell me, if not blood or human food, then how do you feed?
I can eat human food. I've done so on numerous occasions to maintain appearances. However, my physiology is very different from humans, and so it does nothing for me.
Very interesting. But that's twice that you've avoided the question, Myrick.
I feed on small prey. Whatever scatters or scurries.
I find that hard to believe, Mr. Myerson. But I suppose it's all the same. We hunt deer and raise cattle, so why should you doing it be any different? If you're not going to eat, then you may begin reading.
You're quite eager to start. May I suggest we wait until you've properly finished your meal?
Why so, Mr. Myerson?
Proper table etiquette, Miss Gallo. Where I'm from, it's rude to read out loud while one eats at the table. Instead, we engage in proper conversation.
I'm not one for chit-chat, Mr. Myerson.
Shame. One can come to learn so much from simple table talk.
One learns even more from reading.
Perhaps, but until you finish your bowl, conversation will have to do.
Very well, Mr. Myerson. What do you wish to talk about?
There is one matter that has me somewhat rattled. Why is it that I can neither smell you nor hear your heartbeats?
A bit straightforward for a casual conversation, don't you think?
What I shall reveal to you in this book shall be straightforward as well.
The arrangement was, I free you, and you read me that book in front of you, nothing else.
Yes, and I should remind you that that agreement was forged on a mutual feeling of trust, one which I am now asking you to show me.
And if I refuse?
Then you shall have to learn Valpyrian.
Well played, Myrick. The amulet placed around the collar I wear is the source of your answer. It grants me the element of surprise. If a vampire can't hear me nor sense me, then it won't notice me the moment I take its head off.
And this way you've killed a multitude of vampires, I imagine.
Bloodborns and trueborns alike?
Tyrus Godfrey referred to himself as trueborn, and as for the other term, I'm afraid I'm lost to its meaning.
If you're born a vampire, you're referred to as a trueborn. If you're turned into a vampire, you're referred to as a bloodborn.
I was under the impression a turned vampire was a shobi.
And you're not mistaken, but a shobi is nearly turned as a result of a vampire not fully draining his victim. Bloodborns are humans who serve their trueborn masters well, and as a reward, they are turned from a vampire bite and the drinking of their master's blood. It's a rather rare ritual for one to witness.
These bloodborns, are they as self-conscious as their masters?
Every bit. However, all bloodborns are still bound to their master who turned them. As free-willed as they have no freedom.
Interesting. I'm curious now to meet one.
Should you ever, you'll find there's not much difference between them and their trueborn masters, except one notable feature.
The bite mark. Trueborns will not carry a bite mark.
Yes, there's that. But I was referring to something else. Something that cannot be so easily concealed.
Do tell.
Pointed ears. Much like yours, Mr. Myerson. All trueborns are born with this characteristic. Should you ever encounter a vampire without this unique feature, well then.
It's a bloodborn. I must admit, that's quite an earmark, Miss Gallo.
I'm glad you find that amusing. I've finished my plate. You may begin reading now, Mr. Myerson.
As you wish. June 10th, 1690. The light of the crescent moon makes for the perfect cover as I sweep around this nameless town looking for my meal. With no large sources of meat within the area, I've come to resort to feeding solely on rodents. They lurk about and litter the streets. Their heartbeats are difficult to detect, as they are so low-key. One could mistake them for random sounds which occur quite often in a town as dead as this one. I walk through what remains of this town, hoping to catch whatever I can deem as food. Just then, I witness a critter scurrying past me. Quickly, I snatch it from the ground. As I begin to focus on the morsel in my hand, I catch a glimpse of my reflection on what appears to be the only surviving window in an otherwise demolished town square. I begin to gaze heavily at the figure in front of me, and for a brief moment, I did not recognize the person I saw. Was this Myrick, son of Myer of House M, reduced to eating rats to supplement his life force? I toss the critter aside, and continue to turn away from the direction of the house where I left Carina in sleep. It has been 2 weeks now that I've stayed with her here. Our time together, for the most part, has been quite interesting. I've kept my word, and for the most part, I have read to her nearly every chapter of Diophilus's manuscript. In return, Carina has taught me to recognize what she calls Latin-based numbers and letters. I've come to find our trade to be beneficial to both parties. Carina has learned somewhat of the true origin of the vampire, and furthermore about my family and the rich history that is House M, while I have learned how to spell my name, as well as compose certain letters together to form words. Though in the sake of honor, our trade should be even, I've necessarily found myself skipping over certain sections while reading Diophilus's book. I failed to give her any such precise detailed descriptions as to the role the vampire plays in the creation of the vampires. Furthermore, I found myself resorting to feeding on rodents so as to conceal the true feeding habits of my species. I have, however, managed to satisfy Carina's curiosity without the need of unveiling the entire truth, so much so that she has agreed to let tonight be our last. I now wait by the Shobi infant's gravesite for the sun to arise, signifying the end of my stay in this nameless little town. I gaze out into the water. So much has occurred in this one town. It is here where I've learned of a major weakness to my kind, and where I first made an ally. Yet both she and I are clueless as to the name of the town we currently inhabit. Name or no name, I will never forget this place, nor the events which occurred here. As the sun begins to rise, I hear the sound of a large bag drop behind me. I turn to find Carina standing there, with an assortment of bags and the rolled-up rug she unveiled in the church strapped firmly to her back. She was well packed, preparing to take her leave.
Admiring the sunrise, Mr. Myerson?
It's one of the few things I enjoy in this world.
And it's one of the many things us humans often ignore.
Human lives end so shortly. It's a shame some never get to witness such a sight.
There are a few things short-lived lives have over you immortals. For one, we truly cherish what little time we have in this world. When was the last time in 1,000 years of life that you lived a day like it was your last?
Never. Though I must say, if I were like you, at only 19 years of age, I would not be living any of my days as if they were my last either.
You would if you had my childhood to go with it.
Not all childhoods are full of fond memories, Miss Gallo.
Mine were.
Then why the sense of thinking the way you do?
If I had lived 1,000 years like yourself, there would not be vampires left on this earth.
And then what would you do?
I'd finally enjoy a beautiful sunrise.
Don't let that be what stops you.
Staring out into the sky really isn't for me, nor is it the reason I came here to disturb you from your view.
You've come to say your farewell.
Not much gets past you, does it, Mr. Myerson? As agreed, the rising sun marks the end of our stay together. You're free to go about as you wish.
And what of you?
All trails point to the Horde King heading west. I'll take it your ventures take you in the opposite direction.
They do indeed.
And what course shall you plot after?
What are you implying?
Between the both of us, Dragon is as good as dead. He knows it. I know it. The only one here who's left to see that is you.
You've proven yourself in battle. You're more than capable of defeating the Plaguebringer without my aid.
You've seen the horrors from the things he does. I know his actions have affected you. That's why we're standing here, of all places, saying our goodbyes. You've stood here every day, waiting for the sun to rise, yet you've never spoken to me as to why. I've never cared to pry deep into the matter, but I know all too well the look you have right now. Something was taken from you, wasn't it?
No. And even if it were, that is not my reason for being here. You now know all too well the reason I stay in your world. I'm not here to hunt vampires. I only seek to find Theophilus.
Then why the look?
My entire stay with Carina I did not reveal to her of the moment I first met the Horde King, nor shall I. Some things, like the events which occurred the moment before the Plaguebringer and I crossed paths, are best left unsaid. Yet she looks to me for an answer, to which I reply. Honor. I took something from this world, and now she rests between where you and I stand. She was innocent, barely old enough to take her first steps. She was not a monster like the others, yet she was one of them.
A Shobi infant is still a Shobi.
Is it? Tell me, what harm could she have possibly done to you or any human, by that matter?
If she was so harmless, why did you bury her?
Her fate was sealed by what she was. Nevertheless, I honor her memory every day.
Perhaps I was wrong about you coming with me. I gave you too much credit. I thought you knew as well as any a Shobi is a Shobi, no matter infant or elderly. If you can't grasp that, then you'll be no good to me on my journey.
I cannot change who I am, no more than you could change which direction the sun sets. I do wish you the best on your journey. You have a greater knowledge now of your opponent. You have all the tools you need to defeat him. With or without me, the Horde King never did stand a chance.
Then this is goodbye. Here. I suppose you'll be wanting this ring back.
Thank you. You may take your sword back as well.
Her name is Nightbreaker, and she belongs to you now. Treat her right, and you shall keep each other safe.
You have my word.
Should I consider myself lucky to have the word of a member of the House of M?
You're forgetting your bag on the ground.
That's for you as well, Mr. Myerson.
What for?
Open it for yourself and see.
A fawn?
The thing just showed itself by the house earlier. It's quite bigger than a rat, don't you think?
Huh.
I guess some things do get past you after all. I know you're not that familiar with the concept of sleep, so I'll enlighten you. It's called a nap, and it allows me the ability to rest for a moment, and then grants me the energy to follow you throughout the rest of the night. Until we meet again, Myrick Myerson.
Until we meet again, Carina Gallo. The day was young. Carina and I parted ways. Though Carina's gift was thoughtful, the fawn inside the bag was lifeless. A dead animal no longer holds the essentials a Valpyr needs to replenish his life force. However, not all is lost, for where there's a fawn, there must also be a mother deer not too far. I lock my nose to the scent of the fresh animal corpse in front of me. Now knowing what to look for, I took to the skies once more. As I search for my prey, I take a look back at the nameless town, with no survivors, the events which occurred here would be soon forgotten in history. I've come to learn so much in such a short amount of time. Soaring through the open fields gives me a sense of wonder I had not had since my early days in this new world. I descend now as the scent of my prey becomes more potent. To my surprise, I find a herd of deer miles from the town. No doubt this is the origin of the fawn Carina found. Once I fully recover my strength, I shall continue forward, as I did before these events. As for Carina, I knew her journey would lead her to her ultimate goal, and as for myself, well, Paris is just beyond the horizon.
We at Digifox Studios would like to take this time to thank all of our listeners for your continued support. We are currently in pre-production stages of Season 2, titled The Ballad of House M. However, we need your help to reach the final stages of production, since this series is primarily a fan-funded production. It is only through your generous contributions that we may continue in our creative process and bring you the most our cast and crew has to offer. To donate, please visit the link to our Patreon page at www.digifoxstudios.com/tbdc. Thank you for your involvement in our production.